So my guest today, in my opinion, based on every time I've had any contact with him, is a top bloke. He is the founder of the Elite Closing Academy, but I'm going to let him tell you a bit more about that in a while. And I'm so glad and very grateful to have him as the first guest on the Relationship Guy podcast. Mr. Matt Elwell, welcome to the show.
Well, firstly, genuinely, John, I am stoked and honoured to be. I didn't know I was your first guest, so thank you for inviting me. It's very kind.
You're very welcome. I couldn't resist. The last time we met, this guy is ideal to come on to my show and talk about the thing that's closest to my heart, which is relationships. Because the way that you are with people, I think is amazing. I won't go into your details, but the way you showed up for the last time I saw you for the training was phenomenal. And I couldn't help but reach out to you to get you on the show because I think you're an amazing guy.
That's very kind.
So, Matt, thanks again. Thanks for coming on. As you know, this show is about relationships, and I know the importance of relationships in every aspect of our lives and how they can impact. And what I'd like to talk about with my guests is to get a background about them. So if you'd just like to start by just introducing yourself, tell us a bit about yourself, and then we can crack on with some stuff about the relationships.
Yeah, well, firstly, I mean, like you, I believe that life is literally all about the relationships that you have with others, but also the relationship you have with yourself. So, and that's a journey I'm on personally at the moment. And look, I own a training company called the Elite Closing Academy. I've also got a family business where I own a little bit of property that we rent out. We only have sort of one deal that we sort of do these days. And the training company, Elite Closing Academy, is the thing that's, my biggest focus after my family at the moment. And that's because I want to change the way the world sells in a way that's very much in line with a relationship. So I'm not a big fan of this pushy sales and all this kind of stuff. It's very much about human-to-human interaction and two groups of people or two people building up a relationship so that they can effortlessly do some business together. So that's what I'm up to at the minute.
Yeah, and I love that because, I mean, I've been to so many self-development seminars, webinars, everything else in the last few years as I've kind of gone through this journey myself, and the amount of people that hard sell, scarcity, miraculous offers, it's very, very pushy, and it's trying to get you to sweat a little bit under your collar, isn't it, to kind of say you don't miss out. And again, I love the way that you do that. What way do you go down that road rather than what a lot of other people seem to be doing in order to get that?
Yeah. Well, good question. I mean, I think firstly, the thing that underpins my philosophy is that sales in particular should be the perfect relationship. So it should be, and it's a menage a trois. It's a three-way relationship. It should be a brilliant thing for your client. So the first thing that you should always have in your mind is like, what does good look like for my possible client? So a good win for them. Then you want it to be a good win for you. So nobody wants to do business and be in a relationship that's only good for one side. So we want it to be equilibrium. And it should be good for them, and it should be really good for you as well. It should be really good for both parties. When you invest with each other, when you sign the contracts, both parties should win. And then, as you know, because we've done a bit of training together, the third win is when two groups of humans or two human beings are happy. Then there's a third win, and that's for the universe. And let's be honest, there is so much fucking shit out there at the minute. And by the way, I don't even know whether swearing's allowed, but I've done it now. So sorry.
Do it and then we might cut it out.
So sorry, you can get rid of it in a minute.
That's all right.
The bottom line is right here, right now. I mean, look at it. We're talking on a day after England lost in the final. Look at the shit on social media. We should be rejoicing as a nation. We should be rejoicing that our young footballers did a great job and represented it. And yet here we are in a just all this negativity. And that's why I think, the power of a relationship in my world in sales is the three wins. And when humans are walking around being successful, the universe wins. And that's a real critical philosophy, for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the vibration of that energy, I think, as you said, like we should be celebrating the fact that they managed to get to the final. It may not have been the result that people were looking for, but the negativity, the abuse and everything that goes along with that is appalling. And It very much lowers the vibration, the energy levels of people as a whole, and is very bad for the universe.
Totally.
Yeah, so I really like that. Philosophy is amazing. So when did you sort of recognize the kind of importance of relationships for you? When did you sort of see them as a significant factor in your success?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a really, really powerful question. The absolute truth is, it goes back to the relationship with, for me, by the way, it goes back to the relationship with your dad. Virtually everything goes back to the relationship with your dad. And my relationship with my dad, and me and him get on fine these days. But as a kid, it was tough. What we didn't know is my dad was suffering with a very serious mental health issue, and he's since been diagnosed. It's a long time ago, but he's since been diagnosed with certain things where it's like, so that's what was going on. Yeah, there was a lot of love and there was a lot of anger all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I always craved as a child. I always felt really short on. I knew my dad loved me, but I also knew there was a lot of anger there. So I was a bit confused, I think, growing up. And from a very early age, I used to love spending time with older men. So in the cricket club, I was at the age of 11 or 12, I was like at the training every Friday night, every Saturday. I'd be sitting in the bar when I was 12, listening to all the older guys. Right. And I naturally moved towards older men, and I was looking for their, what's the word? I was looking for their attention. Mm-hmm. I was looking to be liked. I was looking to be accepted. And at a very early age, sport was like filled the gap. So, I had a shortage in that relationship in my life, and it definitely impacted my behaviour and the way I went about things, really. And I eventually ended up working with my dad, and the relationship was very strained for a long time, So, one of the things I teach now is the power of relationships in business. And I think having that experience with that specific relationship was at the time like really hard. Mm-hmm. And even now, right up to this day, I've recently just finished some therapy around that relationship, right. And it still causes me, a lot of. There's still things I'm working on with it now, right. But it's also given me, the ability to work on relationships and to understand relationships more and to explore my other relationships in my life.
Yeah, I think what they say that when you're a kid, you're generally looking to your dad for sort of pride, encouragement, support, and you're looking to your mum for the love, the affection and stuff to make you feel safe in that emotional space. It makes a lot of sense that you needed those other guys in order to make you feel good about yourself and to get that kind of reassurance on that side of things.
But it also put me under a lot of, I made some terrible decisions. I started drinking far too early. Mm-hmm. I was a heavy smoker when I was a kid because they all smoked. Yeah. They all drank, they all smoked, and that definitely has had a negative impact on me psychologically. And some of those addictive behaviours have been there all the way through my life.
Right. So even though you were searching for it, it wasn't in the right place for sure.
Definitely. I met some good guys along the way. A couple of my first boss was a great mentor. I've still got a great relationship with him now. He's 80. Mm-hmm. And I've always enjoyed his wisdom. And it's something I don't get from my dad. I don't get from that relationship. But of course, I've learned that when you're trying to get something from a relationship, it's not a healthy one. No. For me, it's very much about like, what can I contribute to this relationship that's led me to sort of develop more really as a person. I think if you're trying to get things, and by the way, I've been working on this for a number of years. When I look back, I go, that was me trying to get something from that relationship, and that's why it didn't work out.
Yeah, I guess. But then we learn that as kids, and when we're kids, we need to get stuff, don't we? Because if we don't get stuff as kids, then we have no idea how to function properly.
And this is the problem in sales, you see. Everybody's trying to get you to do something. Everybody's trying to get you to make you do, like, they want to get commission out of you. They want to get money out of you. They want to get you to do things that benefits them. And what I've learned is that's actually where pushy sales comes in. That's where the persuasion comes in. And that's why committing to, at the very beginning of a relationship, to being, well, look, I'm an author, as you know. My book's called Open with a Close. So it's to start with the relationship, like, what does amazing look for both sides? This is a business philosophy. My negotiating philosophy is like, hey, before we talk about what I want, let's talk about what you want. Let's imagine that both of us end up getting exactly what we want, and we both come out the other side even stronger. That's my starting point. And I think if you can start with the end in mind, if you can have a vision of what amazing looks like and then work backwards from there, that's when you start to get really powerful relationships.
Yeah, definitely. Something I've learned through sort of working with yourself, but also over the last few years. And I mentioned earlier on that sales stuff that makes you want to break out into a sweat. That's when you know you're very uncomfortable in that space. But when I first speak to my potential clients, it's, what do you need? What's the result that you're looking for, and how can I help you achieve that? What can I give you in order for you to make that happen?
And there's a relationship. There's the relationship guy in you right there. And actually that stands us out. So look, my wife and I, we've been married for 14 years and we've been together for about 17, 18. And, I honestly believe that cohabiting with another human being is the greatest challenge there is on God's planet. And again, using my own philosophy, and I am certainly far from being perfect. I can tell you that now for nothing. But I remember saying to Kerry right out the blocks, right at the very beginning of our relationship, look, before we start, what are you looking for? Like, what does perfect look like? Because I'm probably going to let you down. In fact, let me get rid of probably. I'm going to let you down if you're expecting pipe and slippers, quiet nights on a Tuesday, Coronation Street. I'm just going to put it out there. That ain't me. And again, that actually served me really well with Kerry. And look, we dwell in harmony. We've got a wonderful, loving relationship. We have to work at it. Of course we do.
Yeah.
We've got 2 lovely girls. And again, our relationships with our children are things that we're working on right now. But, when I first met Kerry, it was like, look, let's toss a few things out here. Let's get them out in the open, because I couldn't imagine conflict on a day-to-day basis, because I had it as a kid.
Yeah.
And it was not good. No. And, I said to Kerry at the very beginning, and actually the reason why Kerry and I believe have got such a good relationship is because we share values around. And she also had a really not a good relationship with her paternal father. And I think we got shared values around how we wanted to conduct ourselves in a relationship. And she has taught me so much, John. Like, she's so good. She's got great humility. She's really good at picking the time to say or not say something.
Right.
She'd never argue in public, or she'd never make a scene in public. But in private, she would say, look, what happened back there, here's how it made me feel. I wanted you to know how I felt about it. And she's got such a great way of doing it,
Yeah.
So that's I've learned a lot from her.
You've definitely mastered the art of that type of conversation then, and again has removed you from that toxic type space that you grew up in, where it was conflicting all the time and confrontational all the time, where she seems to have like a nice soft way of expressing herself, which you can accept in a way that allows you to be more open to, like seeming relaxing and giving something back in return, and hopefully then opens you up to be able to express yourself in the same sort of way. Because I guess when you grow up in a conflicting relationship as a kid, and it's difficult for you then not to kind of keep going with that space when you get older and start to experience other relationships.
Yeah, and Kerry and I have talked about that in the early days, and we felt just because those experiences had happened to us, we had the choice about what we did with those experiences, and both of us decided not to make it an excuse, not to blame our childhoods or things that went wrong or perceived to be wrong in our childhoods, to actually go, hey, look, all of those experiences that we had, call them good, bad, or indifferent, or just experiences, I tend to call them. The experiences that we had have led us to here. Now, what do we want to do about it? How do we want to conduct ourselves? What kind of parents do we want to be? What kind of partners do we want to be? What kind of lovers do we want to be? All of these questions.
Yeah.
I have to say, Kerry's a real light in this, and she would not she wouldn't want me to share any, of the details, and I respect that. But
No.
the light that she's shown me, in terms of the way she conducts herself through her own experiences, of which were quite tough, has been, I feel really lucky to have a life partner that's got that level of sort of emotional intelligence, and I see, by the way, I'm no relationship expert, you are, but I see a lot of blame. When I look at relationships that don't seem to work, there's nearly always 2 or 3 things that are there that don't feel right, and one of them's definitely blame. They're constantly blaming each other. And look, I had another toxic relationship in a previous business that I owned, and it was a toxic relationship. It really was. And there was blame. I was blaming him. He was blaming me. I was as bad as he. It wasn't his fault. It was my fault as well. I'm in the relationship. And that's another thing, isn't it, that seems to always be there. There's the blame thing. And then there's, well, actually, and I learned this, like, there's a common denominator here, and it's me. Like, it's another relationship that I'm in. So having to, looking at what you're doing to be in that relationship, I think, was one of the most painful things I've ever been through.
Yeah, I think that's what you've just mentioned a few points there that most people don't have a tendency to ever consider, is it? It's actually, what is my role in this? Because the relationships are so very complex, and it takes 2 to make the relationship either go right, go wrong, or have the issues, whatever it's got. So for you to be able to have that conversation with Kerry is amazing, I think, because you are in very much the minority of people that can actually take a step out and go, okay, what do we actually want from a relationship? Most people will just get involved with somebody. They'll go with their instinct. They'll go with what they know from the past, where you've made this conscious choice to get together and say, how do we want this to work? And how are we going to make it work?
And a lot of that, again, I'm really lucky, because my current business partner, the relationship in at the moment, Nick, his parents, who you know very well, have coached me, and I've had them around me. So, again, I think being coached by an expert around relationships has been able to open my mind.
Yeah.
To doing things differently. And obviously it's what you do for a living. I think, honestly, if I'd have known 25 years ago that there were coaches that could have helped me through some of the strife that I was going through, I genuinely mean this. I'm going back 25, 30 years, when even as a young man, I used to earn money. I used to earn my own money when I was like 11, 12, 13. I used to go out and work all night on the milk round and stuff. But I would have paid. I was only earning like 7 or 8 quid or something. But if I could have found a coach for 7 or 8 quid a week, I'd have given them the money.
Seriously. They probably were only charging that 25 years.
No, genuinely. I've had to work some of this stuff out on my own. And of course, when you're trying to work these things out on your own without the right knowledge, I screwed it up a lot. And actually, the last 2 or 3 years since I first met, coaches that I work with who were able to help me, that additional knowledge has helped me to filter it, understand it, learn from it, grow from it. And as I say, Kerry's example of the way she approaches it, it's been quite very impressive. And even to this day, the way she manages relationships, she always looks for good, always looks for positives. And she's a stubborn old so-and-so, by the way. In our relationship, I have to give in more. But I've learned that, I've learned that she's learned to work with.
I guess if you can make that dynamic work,
she's like an old ox, mate.
Well, so long as that's okay for you, and is that because she's generally in the right space as well, I guess?
Do you know what it is? It's just that if we ever do have words, then it's always me that would have to go to her. And do you know what? There are times when I really don't want to.
Right.
And I've learned that if I move towards her, when I move towards her, it'll be fine. And again, look, that's one of the things I've learned about relationships.
Oh, that's amazing that you've learned, because like you said, as a kid, that's nothing. You would have never have learned that, would you? That wouldn't have been okay for you to do at all.
And she's vice versa. There are times where, like, she will want to get answers from me. And maybe I've done, I'm a trainer and a public speaker and stuff. And there are times where my schedule, I call it the decompression chamber. You came a few weeks back, and that was a really intense few days.
It was indeed.
And I've got stuff going on in my private life and whatever. And like on the third day, I literally have to give myself what I call the decompression chamber, just some space. And actually, the way I like to do that is to zone out and watch telly, but don't watch telly. I don't really watch telly.
Yeah.
But I like to lie. I've got this little sort of room in my house, and the kids are in their bedrooms or whatever they're doing something. Kez is in the front, and I just get in this like sofa, and it's like mine, and I put like YouTube or some crappy old time, and I'm not listening to it. I'm not listening to anything. I'm just zoning out. And she'll come in and like she'll be asking all these questions. You're not present. But she's learned that that's my little space. So I think that give and take.
Oh, definitely.
And by the way, we're not perfect. I'm not saying we're perfect. It's just that we've learned. We've been together.
We're human beings. We're very complex, and we're not going to be on the same wavelength as somebody else 100% of the time. If we're lucky, it's going to be 50 to 60% of the time. But it's like you said, it's about that understanding. She's got to know you, but because of the openness that you've got in your relationship, the level of communication that you've got within your relationship, it's an okay space, isn't it? Even if I'm maybe desperately need you to do something, if I see you're in that space, I'm give you that respect in that moment to say, this is the space you need, and I'm going to offer you that.
Yeah, and I think, look, the number one thing that both this relationship with my wife and the relationship I've got with my business partner, the number one thing that we share is values. And I think with me and Kez, for example, we've got some core values, particularly around family, particularly around children, particularly around our children growing in an environment where they're encouraged to learn and ask questions and grow. In a safe, enjoyable, fun space. Again, we do not nail it all the time. Of course we don't. We've got an 11-year-old and a 7-year-old. But in general, we're moving towards the same kind of things. Yeah. And that I find is really helpful. And I say in business, my business partner and I are two completely different human beings, pretty much in every sense, every shape and form. We call ourselves Pumbaa and Timon from The Lion King. And it's fair to say that he's not Pumbaa, it's me. But yeah, we look differently, we speak differently. Apart from he's nicked a few of my words of praises. I'm only joking if you're listening. But no, but again, we're a formidable partnership. We're different, but we're open. We've built our whole business relationship on being able to walk into each other's office and say, mate, look, there's something that's really bugging me, and I want to get it off my chest. Yeah. And that's really helped.
Yeah, I'm sure. Again, it's that openness, isn't it, to be able to express yourself.
Yeah,
you know that's going to be accepted, and you're going to be able to talk that through in a way which is so healthy for you to be able to do that.
Yeah,
and like you said, values are massively important, aren't they? I think when we look at the fundamentals of a successful relationship, having similar values, and in a lot of spaces the same values, is generally what's a key to a long-lasting and I say, what's the word I'm looking for? A long-lasting and actually very safe relationship. You both know you're heading in the same space.
And I think the two words you've used, and this is something, again, I'm speaking about my business partner, long-lasting. We're looking to be in business for a long time. Now, I'm not saying, and again, Nick and I, we're both on the same page. I'm not saying it's going to, things might not change or something might happen. Of course, it's going to change, and I thought things will happen. But we're looking long term. We're not looking for this to be a wham bam, thank you, ma'am, let's make a few bob and leave. We are looking to build something. We're building something formidable. It's global. It's big. It's got values. It's got real undercurrent. We've only really touching the surface. And again, that's the exciting thing about this business relationship that I'm in at the moment, is that it's a it's got long-term thinking. It's got open thinking, long-term thinking. And actually, when I think about personal relationships, when you think about it, ask yourself this question if you're listening to this podcast. What kind of friend are you? Are you the kind of friend that's always looking to get your own way? Are you the kind of friend that always maps out what amazing looks like for you and then goes with that? Or are you open? Are you thinking long term? Are you open to ideas? Are you open to doing what one of your mates wants to do? And I think this is the beauty of the word relationship.
Yeah, I think even again to think about whether you're the opposite to that as well. Are you always giving in? Are you always allowing people to sort of direct your choices and your life, so you really don't ever get a say as well? Something again, another question for people to ask.
Yeah,
you're never going to be fulfilled on either kind of level of that. And if you can find that middle ground where, like you said, there's a lot of giving and receiving, and you can balance that out so that you've got that real kind of underlying current of being in it together, being there for each other, and being able to express yourself openly with one another. I mean, that's an amazing space that you've.
Matt, I go back to it. This question has served me really well for a number of years in business and in life. Like, how do we both get exactly what we want and come out the other end even stronger? Yeah. Like that question, I've got it like imprinted in my day-to-day thinking, in business and life. Like, how do we make this amazing and we both win? Like that is. And by the way, I've been in relationships where the question asked is, how do I get what I want from this relationship? Yeah. And I've been in that relationship a couple of times, and that became for me like shattering really in the end. I just couldn't cope with that mentality. And eventually I needed to change it. And, you know, for anybody listening that knows what I'm talking about, the thing that helped me change or enabled the change was the day I realised that I was in control of how I felt about the other person, about their behaviour, that they weren't in control of how I felt. That was like a fucking light bulb for me. It was like, fuck, this is just wow.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't have loads of those aha moments, but that was my like, fuck.
Yeah, no,
I'm in control of what happens next. Yeah. I'm in control of like what I feel. I'm in control. In fact, apart from blunt force and violence, which causes pain, I'm in control. Even in violent situations, I was still in control of how I felt. And that was just an absolute game changer. Interestingly, in the sales training that I teach, this comes up all the time. When you realise that you're the greatest chemist on the planet, you create how you feel, and nothing outside of you can change what can create what you feel inside. You create what you feel. Again, once you have that, it becomes very liberating to realise that you don't have to, in sales or in life or in a relationship, you don't have to get someone else to do something or feel something or to like they're in control of how they feel, and that it's liberating.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that was one of the major turning points in my own life. Actually, was when I recognised I could control my own emotions, and rather than be led by others and make my own decisions and decide whether a relationship was good for me or not. And you know, all those kind of self-owning kind of statements that most people again were completely unaware of the fact that. You know, I think when we're brought up, it's like, you make me feel this, you make me feel that, you made me do this. And we're blamed and held responsible a lot, aren't we, as kids, for how other people are feeling and what they're doing all the time. And unless we are able to kind of step out of that space, we will go through our entire lives being responsible for how other people are acting and take all of that stuff on board.
And it's so tiring. And look, you know, you just used an amazing word, a word that I've really sort of integrated into my day-to-day thinking, and that is to decide how I feel. And even now, just as I've said that to you, I've got decisions. I don't believe that you can make a right or wrong decision, by the way. I just believe you can make a decision. And then if you need to make another decision, you can decide to make another decision. So you can decide not to decide. And so many people in relationships, by the way, decide not to decide to do something about what's happening to them or they're doing to others. And so when I decided to decide to decide, when I decided to decide that I was going to change the way I felt, I was going to decide how I felt. That was amazing for me. And that's when I started to make some progress. That's another word that, again, I'm constantly going, like, what what do I need to do to progress this forward? What decisions do I need to take now so that this can change, that I can move forward, that I can progress?
Yeah.
And again, these have become real powerful aspects of my teaching in the sales world, and also my relationships.
Definitely. I think what you said earlier on about your dad really resonates with me, because my relationship, my dad was very confrontational, very angry man. You couldn't say anything he didn't agree with, because he would go off the boil. And I decided about 10 years ago or so that I was going to start killing this guy with kindness, because I showed everybody else love and affection. I was very close to everybody else, but I was never close to him. So I stepped back and I thought, actually, I'm just going to decide to love this guy. And by doing that, I then gave him permission to love me in return.
Yes.
And even though he's still probably unaware that he's made that decision to let go of a lot of his own stuff, because I decided to allow that, and I chose that I wanted that from him, and I wanted that relationship with him. It allowed him then to reciprocate in it as much as he could.
I was listening to a podcast the other day with a similar story, and the guy kept telling his dad at the end of the conversation that he loved him. And eventually, after about 10 years, his dad said, "I love you, son."
Yeah.
And it's not the first time he'd ever done it, So, look, I'm a big fan of love. I think, love and trust. I mean, love is just such a powerful thing. It's just amazing. And I think, the more love we can show each other, the more love we can show. Look, it starts with relationships, doesn't it?
It does.
Like, you can choose to love those around you with words, with kindness, with actions. I'm a massive believer that it's literally what you do, not what you say. I know it's an old saying. But I think when it comes to love, it's a bit like mindset. I always go like, mindset's such a surface word. And I believe that mindset are the things that you do, not the things that you think about doing. I think love's the same. Like, there are little acts of love and kindness that just go such a long way. And I look to go, like, what can I do today to love somebody that's not expecting me to love them? Like, what can I do right now in this relationship? I love it with some of my staff. I've learned that one of the best things that you can do to a human being is to pay them a compliment. Is to say something nice about someone. It's such a tiny, weeny, easy little thing to do. And somebody spoke to me the other morning in the gym that, long story, but it doesn't really matter, but somebody I wasn't really expecting to talk to. And she spoke to me, and she was so kind, and she was so complimentary. It freaking made my whole day. Like, made my whole day. A short 45, 50-second conversation that I wasn't expecting. And again, like, you could class that as a relationship. This is somebody I see all the time. We normally have like morning line of them. Yeah. This was an enhanced experience in a relationship of two sort of distant people that go to the same gym. And I think those little things, for me, are just so easy to do, but you have to commit to them. You've done my training. Every day I do 5 minutes. I go, right, who can I reach out to today? Show them some love. I don't want anything back and nothing in return. I just move towards them. And that serves me really well.
Yeah, definitely. I've definitely taken that on board since the training, actually, because we did the exercise, like you said, when we were there, and I reached out to my uncle. I hadn't spoken to in quite a while.
Nice.
He's on his own. So I thought, you know what? I haven't spoken to him in a while. I'll just send him. We ended up having this text conversation for the next couple of days, and it was really nice to kind of get back in touch with him and just to see how he is and make sure that he knew I was there for him if he needed anything.
And the amount of happiness that an act of kindness like that can bring to that relationship. Yeah. That's happened to me a few times. I probably shared it. I had one uncle who, refused to come to my wedding. Like, he was the guy I really looked up to. He took the sort of the space of my dad when I was growing up. Yeah. He bought me my first football boots. He bought me my first cricket bat. He bought me my first golf clubs. And we had this crazy fallout. Like, I don't know how it came about. He got himself in this situation where he sort of read down one line and it was never like that, but he was convinced it was. And we had this big argument. And he even sort of said, look, I'm so sorry I've got this wrong, but I've got so much shame. I'll never, ever, ever be able to have a relationship with you. And he refused to come to my wedding. I even got married in a Church of England, which we weren't that bothered about, but because of my respect for him. And he didn't fucking come. And that really hurt, really hurt. Turned me down, turned my wife down. Like, you can't snub somebody more than not going to their wedding, And that really hurt. This was before I got the awareness of it was my decision, but it really hurt me. I got some anger, some bitterness towards him. And eventually I moved towards him, and it was bloody hard work. And I moved towards him again recently, and every time I moved towards him, he bats me off and he bats me off. But I moved towards him again and again and again. And I was over, I don't live by him, but we were over his neck of the woods last year, just before lockdown. And I got my 2 girls with me. Might have been in between, I can't remember, last year sometime. Yeah. And I said to my wife, my uncle lives right in the corner there, let's just turn up. And she went, great idea, let's go. And we knocked on the door, and he was like, I was like, how are you doing? I wanted my children to meet their great uncle. And he's like, oh, come in, And we had like 45 minutes with him. And it was a hard thing to do, but it was a right thing to do. And, he's getting on a bit now, and he's been emailing me back and forth. And, I honestly, I was like, I can't go through this again. But I think you've just got to, if you're committed, like, relationships can just get so complex. Yeah. And actually go, like, what's the easiest thing for me to do? And do you know what? Actually, my dad taught me this, John. My dad actually taught me this. Just pick up the phone and say hi. That's the easiest thing to do. Yeah. I was thinking about it. How you doing?
It's just opening that door, isn't it? I think, like you said, with your uncle, there's a few relationships that I could come to myself, and it's just about saying, I want this door to be open. Whether you walk through it or not, like you said, it's that choice. It's up to you. But I'm not going to let it hurt me if you don't. But I'm going to leave it open in case you decide that you want.
And by the way, that is how I teach salespeople to sell. The salesperson's job is not to decide what the prospect does. You can't do that, because it's called control. And nobody likes to be controlled. And actually, the control is when it's the other way around. Hey, whatever you decide to do next, I'm good. Like, my job is to ask you what you need, what you want, understand you. If we're a good match, to present you with the options. Your job is to decide which option you're going to take. And that includes no option at all with you, thank you very much. And I'm good with all of those options. And again, once you master that, particularly in the business world, it's as powerful as what you've just said in the non-business world of relationships. It's like, when you stop deciding what other people should or shouldn't do, it releases you, and you remove the feeling of wanting to control. You remove persuasion. You remove using like shitty little language patterns that try to get people to do what you want them to do and decide what I want you to decide. All of that goes away, and actually your life becomes, there's 2 words there's one word I use to. It's called inner peace. You become more peaceful when you stop trying to decide what everybody else should or shouldn't do. You become more peaceful. Yeah.
No, definitely. I definitely agree that it's, you can only control your space. You can only be the person, that authentic person that you really are. And people then need to decide if you're the right mix for them. And like you said, it takes all that pressure away in relationships. Well, I mean, I say to a lot of people, relationships can be really easy. You just need to allow them to be easy. Step out of that space, but which we learn to grow up in, which causes all of the ego blocks and stuff in the first place. And once we let go of that, then we can have the kind of relationships that we choose. As you were just saying there about the Elite Closing Academy, can you tell people how they can get in touch with you? You mentioned your book earlier on. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Just on my website, eliteclosingacademy.com. Look, anybody that that has a professional business, an entrepreneur, an expert, SME, that's looking to find a way to have a relationship with themselves in sales that allows them to be authentic first. That's what I teach, and that's what I've written about. You can get all that, eliteclosingacademy.com. And I think, as I said, John, and this is the reason why I thank you for giving me the opportunity. I think the number one relationship in life has to be the one with yourself. You know, when you go to bed at night, it's your head on the pillow, and I think that's something again that I've realised more now than ever before, is that the relationship, the internal speak, the things that we say to ourselves. You know, just the last few days, I've been practicing the art of waking up in the morning. And you know, I've been doing some study on this over the last few weeks and months with people much more experienced than me. But a large majority, in the high 90% of our thoughts when we wake up in the morning are from yesterday and are either broken or negative. Like 94, 95, 96%, the experts that I've been following say.
Yeah.
And you go in
mood and depression and stuff. And
hang on a minute. You know, that's a lot. And actually, when I first started to read that stuff, I was like, hang on, that doesn't sound right. But then I just kept a pen and paper next to my bed. And I wrote down the first 2 or 3 things that come into your mind. And I'm telling you, like, if you haven't done it, you should do it, because it's like, shit. Like, I'm running my yesterday's program, and yesterday's gone now. So, you know, one of the little things I do, I call it stacking. I go, right, what are the 5 things I can do today to get me started? What can I do this morning? What can I do now? What can I do later on today that's going to help? And I move towards the things that I can do. And I find actually that's really powerful. So, look, I mean, the number one relationship I have been working on for some time now is me. You know, I've been having some coaching on it and all the rest of it. So, yeah, it's the more I look into it, and the more I look at, you know, people that heroes and people that I look up to, I can see that they're on a journey of personal development with the relationship with themselves. I think it's a very important aspect, certainly one I'm going to continue to.
I completely agree. I talk about it a lot in the stuff that I do, and the other podcast shows I'm doing, is the relationship with you is the most important relationship you're ever going to have, because it does dictate everything that you feel, every decision that you make, the behaviors that you exhibit, the people you attract in, the people that you don't attract into your life. So yeah, thanks for that. I think you've pretty much covered all areas of relationships. It's been a fascinating conversation with you. You've talked about business, personal, the relationship with yourself, and you've covered all areas of the kind of stuff that I'd love to talk about. And I've been so, again, massively grateful for you to turn up today. And thank you for being the first guest on the Relationship Guide podcast.
Thank you for having me, mate. Good man. Thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you.